Let's be honest for a second. The honeymoon phase is officially over. We are now 3 years into the experiment that is the Apple Watch Ultra, and the dust has finally settled. When this watch first arrived, it was a shock to the system. It was big, it was bold, and it looked like nothing Apple had ever made before. It felt like a declaration of war against the Garmins and the Swantos of the world. But now, looking at where we stand today, the feeling has shifted. The Apple Watch Ultra has gone from a bold experiment to a very polished, very reliable, and frankly, a somewhat predictable product. It is good at what it does. In fact, it is excellent. But excellence can sometimes be boring. Right now, the Ultra is dangerously close to hitting a wall. The problem isn't that the watch is bad. The problem is that it has stopped moving the needle in the one area that actually matters. We need to talk about the battery life. When Apple decided to slap the name Ultra on this device, they weren't just marketing a bigger screen. They were making a promise. They were selling this watch to a specific crowd. We are talking about climbers who hang off the side of mountains. We are talking about marathon runners who pound the pavement for 5 hours straight. We are talking about divers who disappear under the waves. These are people who pack their bags and disappear into the outdoors for days at a time. For this demographic, a watch is not just an accessory. It is a piece of safety gear. It is a tool. And when your tool dies after 2 days, it stops being a tool and starts being a liability. That is the harsh reality the current Ultra faces. In real-world use, despite all the updates, the watch still taps out at roughly the same place it always has. You get about 2 days of solid use. Maybe you can squeeze out a little more if you are careful, but that creates a whole new problem. We have all been there. You are on a trip and you notice that battery percentage dropping. So, what do? You turn on low power mode. It seems like a smart move. It stretches the battery life. It gives you peace of mind. But stop and think about what you are actually doing. You just paid $800 for the most advanced smartwatch on the planet. You bought a watch packed with sensors and always-on displays. The moment you get nervous, you turn all of that off. You are literally disabling the features you paid extra for just to keep the thing alive. At that point, what is the Ultra even trying to prove? If you have to cripple the device to make it last through a weekend, is it really an Ultra watch? This paradox is exactly why the current model feels stagnant. It is why the upgrades feel incremental. It is exactly why all eyes are now shifting toward what comes next. According to the latest reports and rumors circulating through the supply chain, Apple knows this. They are already deep into the development of the next major leap. Internally, it is known as the N240. If the rumors are accurate, we are looking at a launch timeline pointing toward 2026. Now, 2026 might sound far away, but in the world of tech development, that is just around the corner. If Apple wants this thing to feel like a genuine upgrade, battery life has to be the star of the show. And I don't mean a 10% increase. I am talking about a fundamental shift in how the watch consumes power. We need to move from measuring battery life in hours to measuring it in days. The tricky part here is history. If you look at Apple's track record, they are usually very conservative. They prefer to keep battery life the same and use extra efficiency to power brighter screens. They play it safe. But the Ultra 4 cannot afford to play it safe. We are at a tipping point. Users are starting to look at the competition. They realize other watches can go weeks on a single charge. If Apple continues with these incremental steps, they risk losing the very audience they built the Ultra for. We are wondering if Apple is willing to finally break that pattern. Are we heading for another safe step? Or are we finally going to get the leap we have been waiting for? However, it is not all doom and gloom. There are some genuinely exciting signs coming out of the rumor mill. One of the most exciting whispers involves a feature that has been missing for a decade. We are talking about Touch ID. Think about how much sense this makes. Right now, unlocking your watch can be a pain. Typing in a Y passcode while you are running is awkward. It is friction. Face ID makes zero sense on a watch. You don't want to be raising your wrist to your face constantly like a spy from a bad movie. But Touch ID fits perfectly. Imagine the side button on the Ultra. Now imagine that button has a fingerprint sensor embedded right inside it. This would be massive. It is not just about unlocking the device. Think about Apple Pay. Think about authenticating apps. You could do it all instantly. It would be seamless. It would be fast. It would be one of the biggest usability upgrades in years. Of course, a fancy fingerprint sensor doesn't matter if the engine isn't up to the task. This brings us to what is happening under the hood. The Ultra 4 is expected to ship with a brand new chip. It is rumored to be called the T8320. Usually, when we talk about chips, we talk about speed. But let's be real. The current Apple Watch is already fast enough. I don't need my weather app to open 3 milliseconds faster. What I need is efficiency. The real win with the T8320 won't be performance. It will be power management. If Apple can engineer this chip to be significantly more efficient, it opens the door to that dream scenario. A more efficient processor allows the watch to do the same amount of work while using less energy. They wouldn't have to choose between an always-on display and all-day battery. They could have both. They wouldn't have to ask you to turn off your heart rate sensors to make it through a weekend hike. This chip is the key. It is the technological enabler that could transform the Ultra from a device you have to babysit into a true field instrument. On top of the chip and the authentication, there are hints of other changes. We are hearing about subtle design tweaks. Apple rarely changes a design that works, but the Ultra is due for refinement. We are also hearing about upgraded sensor hardware on the back crystal. This is crucial because the Apple Watch is a health device for many people. New sensors could open the door to tracking capabilities we haven't even thought of yet. Maybe better blood pressure monitoring or hydration tracking. While these things might not sound revolutionary on their own, you have to look at the whole package. When you combine a new efficient chip, Touch ID, and new sensors, the picture starts to change. It stops being just a premium version of the normal watch. It starts to feel purpose-built again. And that is the word that matters, purpose. When the Ultra first launched, it was the tank. It was the beast. Over the last 2 years, that identity has softened. It has become a status symbol for office workers. There is nothing wrong with that, but if Apple wants to justify the price, the Ultra 4 needs to be more than just pretty. It needs to be unstoppable. Small upgrades are no longer enough. The market has matured. We want a watch that lasts longer. We want a watch that works smarter. Battery life and better authentication aren't optional anymore. They are the minimum requirement for the next generation. So, as we look toward 2026 and the N240, the real question is this: does Apple have the courage to go all in? Will they finally give us the battery life that changes the game, or will they play it safe to protect their margins? The Ultra 4 represents a crossroads. Personally, I think the pieces are there. The technology is there. But potential means nothing until it is on our wrists. We are waiting for the upgrade that actually matters. We are waiting for the watch that lets us disappear into the wild without looking for a power outlet. In my opinion, if Apple actually delivers on a 7-day battery and Touch ID, this will be the greatest smartwatch ever made. It would finally live up to the Ultra name. I'm really curious where you stand on this one. Is battery life the deal breaker for you? Or are you happy with the current state of the Ultra? Do you think Touch ID is a gimmick, or would it change how you use the watch? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's get a discussion going. If you like the video, subscribe, share the video, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an upload. See you in the next one.